And now, I would like to introduce the most fashionable, glamorous, beautiful, talented, food-loving, kind, wonderful, and spicy kindergarten early childhood educator the world has ever known. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely
This part's not on the speech, but I just have to add it in. You were talking about the relational investment. To the mic, so you can hear me. That relational investment, I am honored and so blessed to be a kindergarten teacher here, and I'm also a parent here. And that relational investment really has so much depth and meaning to me because my daughter Chloe, who's in 10th grade now, has been attending Oak Grove since 2nd grade. And that financial support that Meredith spoke about is what has allowed us to be here, what has allowed her to also personally receive this kind of an education. And so, you know, many of you know, I mean, sort of my personal story. I'm Serbian. I spent much of my childhood there. And I'm sure that many of you are also aware of the horrible and tragic events that took place in that region. But in 2010, I decided to go back to Serbia and visit. And this time I brought my daughter Chloe with me and my husband and my stepson, who had never been out of the country, so I'm taking him to Serbia. It's like, Dorothy, you're not in Kansas anymore. And so we went, and I decided I really wanted to show them something a little bit different, and we decided to go to Macedonia and the beautiful lake town of Ohrid. Has anyone ever been to that part of the region? It's absolutely beautiful. And so we traveled by car, and we decided to take a little bit of a longer route because we wanted to avoid the still really dangerous region of Kosovo. And so as we crossed this border, which still shocked me because last time I was there wasn't a border there. And intellectually I knew it was going to be there, but actually physically crossing this arbitrary line was shocking to me. And I began to see mosques, and I began to see minarets dotting these arid hills, and all of a sudden I started to realize, wow, this is very different from the world that I am used to, the world that I know, the world that I'm comfortable with, the world of my family, right? And so we passed through this small village, and I noticed as I was looking out the window, there was a group of young people gathered under an Albanian flag. And out of nowhere, all of a sudden, seeing that, I was filled with this rage and this anger. And, you know, I wanted to shout, no. That's not your land. That flag shouldn't be here. This is my land. This is the land that my grandfathers, and, you know, soaked with blood and with tears and with sweat. This flag doesn't belong in this sky. And all of a sudden I felt my hands shaking, and I wasn't on holiday with my family anymore. I was lost. I was lost somewhere in this world of humiliation and of pain that generations of Serbians had endured, that personally I felt my family had endured. And, you know, I didn't really realize at the moment, but this poison was so close to the surface. And I had no idea that it was even there. And, you know, I realized as I kind of calmed down a little bit that the people that were gathered under that flag were celebrating a wedding. It was a wedding. You know, it was a moment that was full of hope for the future. It was a moment that was full of love. That's all they were doing. And, you know, how could I I'm Darinka, right? I eat organic food. You know, I go to yoga. I love peace. You know, I celebrate. I've been on the committee and chaired Earth Day I don't know how many times. And how could I be actually capable of such anger toward a people that I had never laid eyes on, I had never met in my life before? And I realized that, you know, the stories that my family were raised with and then in turn raised me with weren't stories anymore. They had become actual cellular reactions without thought, just a reaction. Some say that it takes 7 generations to heal those collective tragedies, those collective tragic experiences that people have. And at that moment, I realized I really did not want to. I looked at my daughter, and I'm like, oh, I cannot commit the next 3 generations to this kind of just automatic reaction without thought, right? And this experience reinforced for me that, you know, peace is not something that is bestowed upon us by our government or by God, or taken away from us by our government or by God. You know, war actually starts in your own mind. And to me, peace was something that it was a process of really understanding your own reaction, your own prejudices, your own thinking, not by hiding from it, but by acknowledging it and looking at it. And that's that part, that's that self-reflection part that actually is the core of that process. You know, sort of switching gears a little bit, I'm like, well, what does this really have to do with the quiet revolution? And if you ask any Oak Grove kindergartner, okay, so you kind of talk to them a little bit, and you ask them something about bats, okay, they will tell you every single known fact ever written or, you know, published about every single species of bat that you could possibly imagine. They will tell you all the at words that they know how to read now. They will tell you to hold on because they're going to fly, and they're going to show you the difference in flight pattern between a little brown bat and a big brown bat. But first, you have to wait because bats are nocturnal. That's B-A-T-S. And, you know, it's nighttime. You got to pretend it's nighttime or the whole thing's not going to work. And then they're going to leave you standing right there in the middle of the sandbox because now they have to go on the monkey bars and go upside down to show you how bats sleep. And you're like, wow, you know, this whole thing happened. And the beauty of that is that they really still have the ability to become anything that a young child is trying to process, is trying to understand. They can become that in order to really get it, to really understand it. And if, you know, and I was thinking, like, if you could stop for a moment, if you could become that which you were trying to understand, you know, who or what would you focus your attention on? If you could become, even for a split second, a Muslim, or a Jew, or a Republican, or a Democrat. It's true, right? We always say, oh, well, those, you know, those Republicans, or those thises, or those that's. Really? What would it really be like if you were to stop and really become that for just a moment? You would realize those lines, those pretend borders, those lines that isolate us, they're not real. There is no other. There really isn't, and kindergarten taught me that. It did. I suggest everyone come and hang out for a little bit, you'll see. And so it's with that understanding that we infuse the learning at Oak Grove. This is where academic excellence and creative intelligence come together. They're not dissected and compartmentalized as a subject in creative intelligence and a subject in academic excellence. They're seen as the same side of the coin. They work together.